My daughter doesn't call me Mum. She calls me by my first name. Has since she was 19. And the first time she did it, right there at the kitchen table, I knew what I'd done. Because you don't call your mother by her first name unless somewhere along the way she stopped feeling like one. I worked every weekend for 30 years, every single one. Saturday mornings when my kids had soccer games, Sunday afternoons when the whole neighborhood was out on their porches and my husband was grilling and my children were chasing fireflies. I was at a desk. I was answering phones. I was finishing projects that, I promise you, did not change the world. And I told myself the story that every working woman of my generation told herself. I'm doing this for them. I'm building something. I'm being responsible. I'm setting an example. But here's what nobody told me, and what I am telling you right now, from the other side of 78 years of living. The example I set was not the one I intended. What I taught my children, with my absence, was that work was more important than they were, and they learned that lesson perfectly. I want to talk to you today, and I mean you specifically, if you're somewhere in the second half of your life and you're starting to feel the weight of the choices you made. I want to talk about what it actually costs, not in money, in the things money cannot buy back, because we talk a lot about retirement, about savings, about what the doctor says. But we don't talk enough about the grief of realizing you optimized your life for the wrong things, and now you're standing at the end of it doing the math. I'm not here to make you feel guilty. Lord knows I've done enough of that for all of us. I'm here because someone should have said this to me 40 years ago, and they didn't. And I believe with everything in me that it's not too late, for you or for me, to do something about it. But first I need you to understand how deep this goes, because it's not just about weekends, it's about a posture, a way of being in the world that puts productivity above presence, achievement above affection, and doing above being. And that posture, once you've held it for decades, becomes your spine. It becomes the shape of you, and the people in your life arrange themselves around it. So if any of this is landing somewhere real in you, if you're sitting there right now and something in your chest just got tight, I need you to subscribe to this channel right now, before you forget, before life interrupts again the way it always does. Because I make these videos for people like us, people who have lived long enough to stop pretending, people who are finally ready to ask the hard questions about family, about regret, about whether it's too late to rebuild what the years wore down. Hit that button and stay with me, because we're just getting started. Now, let me tell you what 30 years of weekends actually looks like in real numbers. I missed, conservatively, 1,500 weekend days with my family. That's not a metaphor, that's arithmetic. 1,500 Saturdays and Sundays where I was not fully present, where I was either physically absent or sitting at the dinner table with my mind still at the office, still solving a problem that evaporated 3 weeks later. 1,500 days. My son learned to ride a bike on a Saturday. My husband taught him. I heard about it that evening. I said, "That's wonderful, sweetheart. And I meant it, and it was wonderful, and I still wasn't there. My daughter had her first heartbreak on a Sunday afternoon when she was 15. She went to her room and she cried, and she didn't come to me. She went to her father. And years later she told me, not unkindly, just honestly, because by then she was a woman who'd had enough therapy to tell the truth gently. She told me she didn't come to me because she didn't think I'd have time. She didn't think I'd have time. That sentence, that single sentence has lived in my body ever since she said it, because she wasn't wrong, and she knew it, and I had taught her. Now here's the part where I want to be careful, because I'm not going to stand here and tell you that ambition is a sin. It's not. And I'm not going to tell you that working women of my generation made a mistake by wanting careers. We didn't. We fought for the right to have them, and that fight mattered. But there is a difference, and I cannot stress this enough, between working hard and being swallowed whole. I was swallowed whole. And the thing about being swallowed whole is that from the inside, it looks like success. You are producing, you are advancing, you are being praised, you are useful. And usefulness, for people like me, for people who grew up in households where love was conditional and approval had to be earned, usefulness feels like love. It feels like safety. So you keep chasing it, weekend after weekend. You keep earning it. And the people in your home, your children, your spouse, eventually your grandchildren, they learn to live around your absence the way you learn to live around a piece of furniture that's always in the same spot. They stop expecting you to move. My husband, God rest him, he never complained, not once. He was a patient man, a kind man, and he picked up every piece I dropped without ever making me feel ashamed. And I think sometimes, I think about this a lot now in the quiet. I think I took advantage of his goodness. I think I used his patience as permission to keep going, to keep working, to keep telling myself it was fine because nobody was crying, nobody was leaving, everything was fine. He died 6 years ago, and one of the great regrets of my life is that I spent so many of our weekends together apart, that I chose the desk over the porch, the spreadsheet over the sunset. And he sat on that porch. I know because the neighbors told me, years after, your husband used to sit out here every Sunday evening, just watching the light change. He sat there alone and he watched the light change, and he never asked me to come, because he knew I'd say I was almost done. I want to talk about what happens to your identity when you retire from a life built entirely on work. Because this is the part nobody warned you about, and it nearly broke me. I retired at 68. I had planned it, prepared for it financially, done everything right by every conventional measure. And the first Monday morning I woke up with nowhere to be. I had a panic attack so severe I thought I was having a heart attack. The doctor said it was anxiety, but I knew what it really was. It was identity collapse. Because for 30 years I had been my job. I had introduced myself by my title. I had organized my worth around my output. And when the output stopped, when the meetings stopped and the emails stopped, and the people who needed things from me stopped needing them, I didn't know who I was. I was 78 pounds of ambition with nothing left to feed it. And then I had to sit down with myself, really sit down, with all the quiet I'd been avoiding for decades, and ask, who is this woman? What does she love? What does she believe? What does she actually want, now that wanting has to come from somewhere other than a performance review? It took me 2 years to answer those questions. 2 years of therapy, of journaling, of long conversations with my pastor, of walks alone in the early morning when the world was still asleep and I could think without performing. 2 years to excavate the real woman from underneath the worker. And what I found underneath all of it, was someone I actually liked, someone curious and funny and tender and still, at 68 years old, capable of genuine joy. She was in there the whole time. She'd just been buried. So what do you do with that? What do you do when you're 70 or 75 or 80 and you're holding a lifetime of choices in both hands, and some of them are heavy? I'll tell you what I did. First, and this is the hardest thing I have ever done in my life, I apologized. Not with a card, not with a phone call that lasted 3 minutes. I sat down with my daughter, the one who calls me by my first name, and I said, I know I wasn't there the way you needed me to be. I know you built yourself without me in ways you should never have had to. I'm not asking you to forgive me quickly or easily. I'm just asking you to know that I see it, and I'm sorry, and I love you in a way I never found the right words for. She cried. I cried. We sat there for a long time without speaking, and she doesn't call me Mom yet. But last month she called me twice in 1 week, just to talk, about nothing, about everything. And the second time she called, before she hung up, she said, I love you. She said it first. I have replayed that moment more times than I can count. Second thing I did, I stopped treating my time like it was a resource to be optimized and started treating it like it was the point. The time is the point. The conversation is the point. The afternoon with the grandchildren that goes nowhere and produces nothing is the point. I started saying yes to things I used to schedule around. Lunch that lasted 3 hours. Walks with no destination. Phone calls I let go long. Sitting on the porch, watching the light change. Third thing, I started talking about it, like this. Because I think we do each other a disservice when we only share the highlight reel of our lives, when we perform the dignity of aging without showing the underneath. And the underneath, for a lot of us, is complicated and sad and full of things we wish we could redo. You deserve to hear that, because if you're in it right now, if you're in the middle of the reckoning, you should know you are not alone. You are not broken. You are just awake. I want to leave you with one thing. There is a woman, or a man, inside you that the years of performance and productivity and doing have covered over. I know this because I was covered over for 30 years, and the excavation is worth it. The uncovering is worth every uncomfortable, quiet moment it takes to get there. You are not too old to be known, by your children, by your grandchildren, by yourself. You are not too late to sit on the porch. The light is still changing, and the porch is still there. And this time, you can be there too. That's what I know. That's what 30 years of weekends and one very long reckoning taught me. I'll see you next week. And if nobody said this to you today, I'm glad you're here.